Hey everyone, welcome to HomoGalactus, our second session. We're so super excited to be back with everybody. And hey, we had a blast doing the first launch. We had to date, it is February 10th of 2023. To date, we had about 77 views on our video, and we have 8 subscribers. And I just thought we had a blast, and we want to keep it light and fun. And today's topic is astrology, and we are going to put it into 2 parts, 2 manageable parts, because of course, some feedback that we've gotten says that things are could be a little lengthy in our busy life. So we're going to kind of put it in bite-sized pizzas. So Rico, how would you feel in terms of sharing with our audience after the launch?
Hey, I thought it was great. It was an opportunity for us to create something and to outflow, which is important, part of the creative process. And it also stimulated a strange number of combinations in your brain. And as for me, that I hear myself saying the stuff that's been rattling around in this little cranium, So I said, say it in some sort of an entertaining, logical, primitive way. And that you could absorb it and go, hey, well, this is different. If Bad Bunny could get up there and say, blah, 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 and everybody go, oh, Dios mío, man, he's so tremendo. Let's go and give me Grammy Award. Hey, there's room for me at the table. I may be the last guy you look at, but that's a whole other ball game. You won't find people making presentations on this channel like me. I'm unique, peculiar, and really a lot of fun. So,
Awesome. So, we're just going to also under the advisement of several, I'm going to read a little disclaimer, but I'm going to try to kind of make it fun. And then I'd like to call attention to our attire before we totally go into our OpenAI ChatGPT and then our topic part 1 for today. So the disclaimer I'd like to read is the views and opinions expressed in this video are those of the if I can keep a straight face here, are those of the guests and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of HomoGalactus, which is presenting this for enlightenment, entertainment, and to elevate the dialogue as an alternative to earthbound consciousness. Hello?
well, that's me. Yeah, I mean, once.
Did I say it wrong?
No, you said it perfect.
Okay, so now I'd like to call
I had a look. I was looking at something. I heard what you said. I think it's perfect. Thank you very much for saying it. It's for enlightenment and entertainment.
Okay, so before we go into our first question,
now that you mentioned it and you included me in there, I got to say a few words. Some people go, oh, he says something. Is that enlightenment? Is he against my religion? If you don't like it that way and it's getting you all up in a feather, it's for entertainment. If you like it, stay tuned. If you don't like it, change the channel. We're not forcing you to do anything. We're here for half an hour for your enlightenment, if you want it, and your entertainment, if you want it. Take your pick, merge them together, do both. I recommend both.
Okay, I want to talk really quick about our attire before we jump into our first question.
Oh,
so you have something gleaming here, and I know you called attention to it before. And this is what? Tell us what this is real quick.
So this is a one-dimensional, two-dimensional of a very initiatory gift that I was given by my wonderful daughter. This is a Metatron ring, very custom made by Chris Olson. And I don't wear it all the time, but since our first kickoff, I've been finding myself wearing it. Now, it's also kind of large, things like that. You bang into people who break their eye off. So I got a cheaper, much cheaper, but it's a medallion with Metatron. And so it is, when you look at this ring a certain way, you see this. Ooh, see how bright it is? For your enlightenment or your entertainment. So I was carrying this, and then I said, you know what? I should wear this too. Because it got a
nice.
little.
And can we see the shirt you're wearing also, please?
The shirt. Okay, I'll move this to the back because it will reflect from the light. Okay, the shirt we had a wonderful opportunity in May, Denise and I, to go to a symposium.
2022.
And 2020, yeah, of course, it's not May this year. It had to be 2022. Oh, you mean because it could have been 2021? Okay, it's recent, May 2022. And we had a week and a half of conscious expanding talks and concepts and so on. So Denise, since I mentioned, I said, hey, this is a nice symposium we're having. Because you go to a symposium, you got 9 to 5, you got lunch in the middle, you got this, you got that. We were doing it face-to-face, one-on-one in our house with all the resources that we have. We had a great time, and totally mind-expanding time. So my wonderful daughter, Denise, says, you know, this is a starseed symposium. And here is the shirts that we wore because they came during that week and a half, thanks to Amazon. And you'll notice the mystical symbols and so on and so forth. So this is basically an outgrowth of the symposium. So in other words, we were doing a one-on-one symposium and watching videos. And now we're doing a video symposium and we're inviting you.
Awesome. So I want to talk about my attire real quick. This is also symbolic of the 3 chakras. It is the seed of life, also designed by Chris Olson. By the way, we're not sponsored by anybody. And it represents the top 3 chakras. Top 3 chakras. So this is the crown chakra, third eye, and the Vishuddha. This is the throat chakra. Okay. These are just some cheap earrings I got at Kohl's. This actually is my Cuban grandmother's ring. It's Alexandrite that she gave me. But this cool thing I got at the Ancient Aliens tour last month when they came here through Phoenix. And it's one of the ancient, so I'm going to read what this is actually. They're calling it the Jet 3 lapel pin. Whoa, GP Golden Flyer. It's a pre-Columbian Kimbaya pin. And what happened was I don't know all the semantics behind it because I'm not an Ancient Aliens researcher, okay? I just thought it was cool because they found these objects in these tombs and they were solid gold. And when they started to examine them, at first that they thought that they were little gold things that were like emulating insects. And they took a closer look and they're like, actually, this looks like an airplane, but this is like 3,000 or 4,000 years ago. And so they recreated this in a 3D format. Okay.
Wow.
And they actually flew it. The aerodynamics were all built in.
Wow. So
yeah, so
they recreated that and they flew it?
Yes, in like a large scale. It was able to fly. So the aerodynamics and balancing of this object that they found in this tomb worked.
For our atmosphere.
Yeah, well, they probably had a little engine or something in it. So that's my attire. But let's go ahead and let you start with our topic for today, which is astrology.
Okay, so we're using, we want to make it relevant. Whatever we say, we try to make it relevant. There's people at all levels of awareness and all kinds of things. So we could go and say our opinion. So what we're doing is we're using ChatGPT. And it's because it's 600 million documents have been read into it and they put it into a database and they have this AI searching mechanism. It's like having Wikipedia with a verbal front end, not a verbal textual front end. Instead of just asking 1 or 2 little whatever thing, you could ask it to create a poem. You could ask it to give it an introduction. You could ask it all kinds of mashugana stuff. And it will format it for you by going through the whole database. So that's what we're using. It's current, it's interesting. That's what's happening in 2023. We want to be relevant. So we're starting with that. And that is kind of like the basis of everybody out there or everybody who's ever written anything. That's the basis. And then we'll go and use that as a bridge. So, okay, this is common earthbound consciousness. scientifically driven, because the last time they explained to us, hey, what you're talking about, HomoGalactus, that's not even really a word, and it's not scientifically proven. That's why we mentioned the disclaimer, because we're just giving our opinion of stuff. These words that are out there, we didn't make these words up. Their subjects is like you heard the house of many mansions. Well, each one of these subjects is a mansion. I mean, you say astrology, that's a mansion. You say about energetic life beings, there's a mansion in there. You talk about religion. Now, there's a bunch of mansions on that, and you can go into each and every one. What we are doing is using ChatGPT as a method of choosing which mansion we're going to go in and introduce you to. You don't have to stay in that mansion, and we're not pushing it. We're covering a variety of subjects. And at some point in time, we'll put a table of contents out there of topics that we're going to use and a cover. And I won't be the only one. There'll be other people come in here, and because we got a great interviewer here. She has an absolute natural talent that you may want to interview other people. So who have better information on the various mansions. We're a house, and we cover different mansions. So that's putting it that way. So let's go to AI, and let's see what it has to say. So AI, it says here, I have to change glasses because the other one is bifocal. So I wrote, what an introduction to astrological theory. Oh, not what. Excuse me. Write an introduction to astrological theory and interpretation. So that's, wait a minute, let's do something a little different here. Sorry for this little wrinkle. I'm here.
Okay, I'm here.
Sorry for the technological whatever. We have a couple of windows open, and that was way down the road, I want to bring it next to it. So it says here, this is what ChatGPT says. Astrology is an ancient form of divination. Well, let's stop there. It may have started out that way, or archaeologists, because they don't know any better, if they can't put it in the five senses to give it its own word. It may or may not have been used for divination, unless you mean divination in the form of divinity. I think it was really a connection between, here we are on the planet, and it's dark at night and there's no candles, and we look up at the sky and say, hey, that looked very similar to what we saw yesterday. And then they start, and anyway, it got expanded. You've heard a different thing, but divination sounds almost like a slur. Sounds like, who knows about divination? You take astrology, you're trying to be divine. What are you? Hey, you're a cockroach.
Honoring the divine is almost like worship in a way, wouldn't it? Divination is like,
well, yeah, that's
prayers.
that's what Group AT, this Chat APT is saying. I mean, that's the interpretation that I'm getting. It's a slur. To me, it's kind of a little shading. Astrology, I'm a scientific-based orient. I'm speaking as Chat GPT right now. Astrology, hey, it's an ancient form of divination. You know what that means, right? So I'm going to continue. That involves the interpretation of positions and movements of celestial bodies as the sun, moon, planets, in relation to the time and place of an individual's birth. Well, that is true. There is a connection there, and I'll cover that aspect of it after I finish this. The theory behind astrology, now this is why I asked it to do. The theory behind astrology is based on the belief that the alignment of the celestial bodies at the time of a person's birth has a direct influence. Now, I issue with the word influence. It has an influence on their personality traits, relationships, career paths, and life events. I don't think that it has. It may on some quantum energetic basis that has not been tabulated statistically. I think it has a direct relationship between, okay, this is the way I look at it. You have many things going on this particular planet, right? And you have You have genetics, you have mother and father, you have, I had it over here, we got distracted. And here we go. Well, okay. Well,
right. So
uh,
sorry. So we had some hiccups. I'm just going to, we kind of paused for a moment. We're going to jump into our first question here. So Rico, how did you get interested in astrology?
oh, well, there's a serendipitous situation. Back in the 70s, I was a marketing design specialist, which means you had a product or something and you wanted to bring it to market. I put a package around it, set up channels of distribution, sales force, and so on and so forth. So we lived in Los Angeles, and I had put together a fairly elaborate product together for a company called Old Factory. And based on that, a company in Albuquerque said, hey, you know what? We have a $50,000 retainer to Viacom on an author. The author's name is Sybil Leek. And we don't have a marketing manager to put this together. Can you put a product together on that? And I said, well, what is Sybil Leek? She said, well, she wrote about 40 books. 20 of them were on Wiccan. I said, Wiccan? Isn't that some kind of witchcraft thing in England? I don't know. And what's the other 20 books? The only 20 books are astrology. Do you know anything about astrology? Now we're on the interview, right? Do you know anything about astrology? And I went, well, I gave my wife a Linda Goodman sun signs book for Christmas. You did? You know more about astrology than we do. I had no idea about astrology. It was a buzz in the 70s, when the hippies came in. Hey, look, we're getting enlightened. Look, astrology. So that was my opinion of this thing, because I was very straight, and I'm still straight, very straight. I just had a chiropractic adjustment this morning, so I'm straighter than usual. Entertainment, remember entertainment. So, this is kind of when you did stand-up comedy and you say something, and the audience doesn't respond. I'm used to that. This is what I'm doing now.
Hey, I'm laughing. I'm laughing.
No, I'm not counting you.
Don't you hear me laughing over here?
Yeah. No, I hear it. No, I don't mean you. I mean, you're the host. You got to laugh. I got to have one person laughing. Anyway, I digress. Excuse me. So, hey, it was an opportunity, to further my career, blah, blah, blah. I moved from Los Angeles to Albuquerque. To me, that was a great idea. We had a dear friend out here, PhD anthropologist. Man, he knows how to dig in the dirt like you wouldn't believe. And so I came out here and looked at it, and not here, there in Albuquerque. I'm not in Albuquerque now. And so I said, yeah, I got an idea of what we could do. And they had some preconceived ideas of what they were going to do, and I won't get into the marketing of it, but I presented a plan to them, and they said, great, let's go do it. So I went to Sybil Leek. She lived in Vegas at the time, and I said, one of the ideas is we have a card, because, somebody buys this artwork that you got with your face all over it. Your wicked face is all over this thing. How they made it look like an astrological sign, I'll never know. But then again, I don't know anything about astrology at that time. I said, so I want to have it, a little 40 words, 30 words on the bottom is your Sybil Leek, your interpretation of that piece of artwork. And then take that and put it on a greeting card, because they buy it for a present. They want to have a birthday card, and here's the thing. And then we had a little incense thing. We had not the sentence, but the sign on the incense. And so it was a nice little package. You got a poster, you got some incense, you got a greeting card, and can we have a party with those three things? Most people found a way to do that. So I went to Sybil Leek and I said, would you write a little thing? She says, look, my boy, I wrote 20 books on astrology. You can go and read them and write your own thing. and then I'll approve it. I went, oh, okay. So now, many years later, I reflect on that initial conversation, and she was being kind of like a Zen master. Go and read the stuff, find out what's going on. Let's have a common dialogue, and then you'll have learned something, and then I can see how close you tracked. If I didn't like what you said, I'll edit it. So that was
Gotcha.
so I didn't read all
And wait,
20
this
books.
is before they actually hired you?
No, I had the job already. I was
Oh,
out,
okay.
we were out in Albuquerque, and we presented what we were going to do and what the artwork was, and presented all of that. But I said we need to have some text on each of the posters, and I was going to use the same text in the birthday card, the greeting card, the astrological greeting card. And so this is what she said at the meeting. She said, well, man, I wrote 20 books. You go and read them and then submit it to me. I'm not going to, in other words, number one, let's take the metaphysical point of view. You need, and I need to have the same vocabulary. And on an earthbound point of view, look at, I wrote 40 books. I'm with Viacom. You read my stuff. Go and buy my books, and then I'll approve it. I'm not going to take my time and go, for a poster. It's your job. So I'm going to take it from the spiritual point of view. I went and read a couple of her books. I mean, I didn't devour them and memorize them and write in the columns. Okay, sun signs, I got it. Put it down here. Here it is. Because, we had a deadline. We had gift shows to go to, etc. So I wasn't about to sit down and become an expert astrologer at that particular time. Okay, so we did that, and that's how I got introduced to astrology. I can go into more detail on that, but that's basically the answer to your question, how I got interested in astrology. And then, I guess you want the other part. So you did that, you did the marketing thing, that was you. Well, I said, I've been reading this stuff, and it sounds like it might have something to do with it. Plus, being a Virgo and her being a Leo with the moon in Virgo, we kind of connected on the Virgo channel. So our dialogues, she was an incentive for me to look further at astrology. And then I look at it from a scientific point of view and say, okay, how can I go and see how accurate these relationships that people are talking about, how accurate are they? And can you see them in an astrology chart?
Did she actually do astrological charts?
She was a writer. She didn't do charts. I mean, she
Okay.
may have. I don't know what I communicated with her on social and an authorship and
Right.
an administrative approval basis. She never said to me, oh, by the way, if you give me your birth date and time and place of where you were born, I'll do your astrology chart because I want to see who I'm dealing with over here. She didn't say that. If I would have been her, I would have said, okay, so they approved you from a marketing point of view. Let me get your chart. Let me look at your chart and see if you and I will work together. Maybe we're not together, And if I would have been her and I wrote 20 books on the subject, maybe she made the shit up. I don't know. I would have said, give me your chart and give me your information. I want to do your chart. I'm not going to give you an interpretation because you have to pay money for that. It's at least $150 a half hour. But I want to know for my own self, what am I dealing with over here? How good of a...
But from her books, it helped you to advance from the idea of not being familiar at all with astrology or not really knowing much about it. Linda Goodman's sun signs, maybe the newspaper, and there's a little column that has your daily horoscope. I don't even know if that was kind of around back then, but you somehow advanced to what was the very next step that caused an expansion in your knowledge of the idea of charts.
Okay, well, right? I like that. Very good. Now I can see why you're a hostess in demand here, because after the thing was all over and we sold it all around the country, and I won't go into the details of the whole promotion, but it was a year-long process, and now comes up on Thanksgiving. I did my job. I set up the distributors. I set up everything. I don't like these glasses. I want to look nice for you guys because that way you'll come back. If nothing, you'll come back for the glasses.
What about my glasses?
Oh, yeah. Oh, now we're hitting a home run over here. So now they said, we're letting you go.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I was let go.
And you
And
moved to Albuquerque for this job.
I moved to Albuquerque for the job to put the thing together to further my career. So now I did stuff for the olfactory, and it was a big success. We were in 40 stores all around the country. We did $40 million worth of business. And now I did it for IMS here, for Sybil Leek, who's a writer, and did all of this stuff. And look at this, the product is flowing off the shelves and yada, yada, yada. Now, what's my next big project to work on? Using them as a lever as part of your resume. I mean, at least I did it. George Santos never did it. Put things in the comments. You know, he didn't do it. He might have said he did it, but he didn't do it. I did it. So I'm there going, okay, I got to find a new job. What about this astrology thing? People are doing predictions. Is it inherent in my chart that this kind of a success would become a failure, or am I be able to escalate or evolve using this as a tool? So I got more into it, and because I had more time, I was reading a lot of the books, and then we got into, all kinds of stuff. Now, you're going to ask me how we used to do it, or did you include that in there?
Well, no, I mean, you're reading ahead on my questions, actually.
Oh, okay.
I was wondering if there was a pivotal point in time, which you just explained, but also what was it that you maybe researched, a book that was the most impactful, that opened your eyes to the idea of the full chart? Was there anything?
Okay, so I learned the technique for doing the charts, and those days was all manual. A lot of hassle, believe me. I don't even want to discuss that.
That's part two. That's part two.
Well, it was trouble. But I came across a book that lended some credence to the interpretations that you found on the chart. And interestingly enough, because astrology has been back since 5,000 years, the Greeks, the Egyptians, the Greeks, everybody had some kind of a connection of the stars up there and how to interpret it and the repetition of the cycles. We won't go into that. But somebody required a more accurate update of the relationships, because the basic relationships in the chart, it was weak. So
before you continue, I'm sorry. Can you just let our audience know, because some people may not be super familiar. They might say, "Hi, I'm a Scorpio. Hi, I'm a Pisces. I know that I'm creative. Oh, we're both water signs. Let's hang out." So what is the difference, if you could enlighten our audience to the difference between the sun sign and the full astrological chart? What is a chart for people that don't know?
Okay, well, in order to answer that question where my mind is at, I have to give a little bit of a background of what astrology is trying to do. It won't take more than 1,800 sentences. No, just a couple of sentences. Okay. We left off in relationships and so on and so forth. And then there's planets, there's signs of the zodiac as you're going through the sky, and then there's the informational relationship content that it's trying to portray or open you up to. And so it's really a four-dimensional kind of thing that they're trying to describe, but they can only draw it on 2 dimensions. So you got 12 houses, 12 signs, 10 planets, and they all have a location, which we'll cover in another time how they developed. And so those were what the relationships are. So they come up in order, it can be, this is complicated. You got 12 signs, you got this, there, different houses, with the relationship, too much trouble. So why don't we take where the sun was? If we had just the sun and we talked to the people on the sun, then maybe they get a door opener. Sun signs. Oh, that's astrology. I know my sun sign. It's a door opener. In order to really get a feel for the person, you got to know the sun sign is important, because that is how you project yourself to people. So the correlation goes. And the other one is, where was your moon at the time? Because that's the way you feel inside. And just because you have a sun You don't know where the sun is. You don't know what house it is. It could be in a bad house or a dark house or not an expansion house. Where is that sun? But I would like to know what you feel on the inside. And the other one is, what's the rising? Because if I knew the rising, then I know where the houses are for the moon and the sun. You got to have the rising. Because why? The sun is the personality. I mean, not the sign. The rising sign is the personality. The sun is how you project yourself, so to speak, in a variety of different ways. And depending on what sign it's in, that colors. The sign is like an adjective to the planetary position. And the relationships are like the verb of how these dynamics work together is a relationship situation. And that's not unusual. That's what we have in life. We have family, we have relatives, we have jobs, we have a connection base. So we are essentially living that right now. We don't look at it that way because we look at it from not we, not us, not HomoGalactus. We're past that now. We're trying to get past that. But an earthbound being who believes in, an archaeological point of view, if I can't touch it, break it, smell it, taste it and put it in my whatever, then for heaven's sakes, I can't count it as real, right? So this point of view is that you are more than just those things.
Awesome.
So you need to have all three. You got to have three: the moon, the sun, and the ascendant, which is how you project yourself to other people. The sun is how you think you present. The moon is how you feel, and the ascendant is how you project to other people and how they see you.
And the rising, that's the rising sign, is the ascendant.
The rising sign. The ascendant is the rising sign. And that's all determined by the location and place where you're born. I mean, the location and time.
So the sign, everyone has a sign in each one of the planets in our solar system.
Population wise, yeah, every sign is covered.
Okay. So you talked about
an individual. Did you mean that as an individual has a sign in every, a planet in every sign?
Yes.
No.
Yes, that's what I meant.
No, that's not what it is. Because it depends on when you were born. Some people don't have a water sign, like for example.
No. Well, so my, for instance, everyone thinks of it as a sun sign, but we have a sign in the moon, depending on where it was when we were born, right? We have okay, what about Saturn? What about your Venus? Like my Venus is Scorpio.
All of it. I only mentioned
every planet is in a different position. So you actually have an astrological sign in each of the planet in our solar system, depending on where it was positioned at the time that you were born.
And with the backdrop, the sign is the backdrop, because if you look at that planet in our solar system, what was the backdrop behind it? That's the sign. The sign is a backdrop. It's a constellation of stars that we are, the Earth and sun, the whole planetary, our planetary system, our solar system based on the sun, is rotating through this 26,000 year cycle. And at any point in time, you look where all these constellations are in relation to the house that the location where you were born. And it's important for me to mention at this time, because we took a dig on influence and divination, and now we're saying sun sign. It's a good conversation getter, but people say, hey, what's your sun sign? I'm a broccoli. They're trying to put the whole thing down. So there's a lot of stuff out there. Oh, I read the thing in the Sunday paper, and I'm nothing like that. Well, because you're only working with the sun sign, you got to have three. Yeah, but
what are the other planets?
Well, the other planets are they have other aspects which are good. Okay,
and there's too much to get into right now.
Yeah, but this is important. This part here.
Okay.
All right. Everybody has a parent. They have relationships. They have a place where they were born. Not a place, but an environment of where they were born. They have a genetic history. They have a social environment. They have their own earthbound network, the mansion of the family that they born into. That's a mansion in itself, because we're using that analogy. Every clump of information the house of many mansions, a clump of information is a mansion, because you go in there and you get into details. Next thing you know, you're building another room, you're putting a thing upstairs, a basement, an extra garage. That's the mansion, okay? And everything that's going inside this. So all of that. So you say, okay, you know what? At the time you were born, right next to you was another kid that was born. So they were born exactly at the same time. Two different doctors. Otherwise, the guy's, an octopus. So two different doctors, two different rooms, but they were born within seconds of each other. Let's make it that way, okay? One guy, when he's 20 years old, is going to jail. Why? You don't know. The other guy, he's going into college. He's got a career path. He's done internships. His future looks phenomenal. So you say astrology is a piece of junk because you compare these two guys and then they're not the same. And they were born exactly with the same chart. I'm born a week earlier than Bernie Sanders. Okay? And look at me. I look different. I'm not putting Bernie down. I love the guy. Right. And some of the things that I see him doing, I'm just now getting around to it. He's been doing it already for 40 years. So the connections and the relationships are a lot stronger. And the way he was brought up and all of that stuff has something to do with it. So I picture, this is the way I picture from an EpiGalactus point of view. Whether it's true or not, hey, it's up to you to decide, find your own path. But this is it. We came here with this mansion confide with the parents and the relationships and all that kind of stuff. And so we're going to be programmed by that. That mansion is going to define who we are on an earthbound physical body basis. So what do we have for ourselves as a reminder what the hell we came down here for? Hey, nobody's talking to you about that kind. That ain't in the book. That may not be in your mansion. So what do we give ourselves to go and say, oh, we're more than what was in that mansion? And that, to me, is what the purpose of the astrological chart goes to. So as your life is going along, doing whatever it is that you're doing, and suddenly one day you bump into an astrology situation, and it maybe piques your eye. Now there's an expansion in consciousness, because now you're looking at something that's other than earthbound. And as a matter of fact, at one time, you might have considered that to be stupid. It was unscientific and only jerks talk about astrology. Now we're talking about acceptance. How do things get accepted? First you say it's dumb. The other one is maybe there's some truth to it. And the third thing is you go, there's merit to this. And I kind of went through that myself with astrology. And the fourth one is, hey, that's my idea. I was the first one who accepted that. So there's that 4 steps of acceptance of any kind of thing because new ideas are usually opposed because they're not already common. But you can only make progress by ideas which are different than the ones you've already been programmed to. So you're in a catch-22. You put down the new ideas because they're not already known, and then you can't make progress because you wrapped yourself in a little box and that's it. Now I'm in this mansion and I'm having all kinds of fun and there's all kinds of new things to do, but I haven't opened the door and I haven't gone outside and look what the house looks like, because a house has many mansions. Some mansions we go into because we got a job. Some other mansions we go into because we got a religion. Some other stuff. You got the idea. The similitude, trying to get you to think out of the box, out of the body, because we are an out of the body kind of dialogue. So astrology, however it is, however the circumstances, your energetic consciousness has a regulator on it, and it allows spontaneous, synchronistic, serendipitous events to occur for you to suddenly look at something. You're inside the house of many mansions, but you look out the window and you see something. And now, if it's attracted to you, if you're attracted to it, then you go and explore it. And at that point in time, you've moved a notch in your thought concepts. And that's what astrology is. It's your personal key that you gave to yourself, that as you expand your consciousness, you perhaps could use this as a kernel, as a reminder that, number one, you're not a body. Number two, you have a place in the universe. And number three, that you're an energetic, eternally spiritual being that can go anywhere and do anything that it wants to do for service. You got to have service. Entertainment would be nice. And enlightenment. What more is there? We're going to serve, we're going to understand things, and we're going to have some fun. Why would we be in creation for anything other than that? As a matter of fact, the creator who created us out of love is the only one containment entity that is having a good time. We are screwed up in our particular mansion, banging into walls, and who knows what's going on in our mansion. But the creator created the whole thing out of love, and it's all that is, and it's everywhere simultaneously. The only key that we have as a possible key to out of this madness, this escape room Earth, is our astrological sign. And once your consciousness gets to that point and starts looking at it, not as a thing of the future, because there are guys, man, they won't go to the bathroom if the astrological charts aren't right. I'm using it as a key to get out of your earthbound consciousness. So then it's an evolutionary enlightenment process that you can follow and use as something to go and expand, depending on kind of what the vocabulary is for your chart. It gives you a clue on who you are, what you could do, and what you came out here to do. Because everybody's down here, but what are we doing here? Well, we're working on the computer. We got a concometer in the old days. We're shoveling shit. I mean, what are we doing down here? Okay, we're doing all of those things, but why are we doing that? We're doing that here for a higher purpose. I don't believe in a higher purpose. Okay, in that case, you probably don't know your astrological sign, and you're not ready for that subject.
Okay, my next question is, I want to bring it back a little bit into the two main areas of astrology. One is the chart, okay? The other is the interpretation of the chart that we refer to as the reading. So I know that you do astrological charts and readings, but for just to do the wrap up of this first session, because I think the charts is going to be a little bit more involved.
Yeah, we're not going to go into a chart. Yeah.
I don't want to talk about the chart now, but I do want to ask, because you do provide this service to people, not trying to sell you, but that is something that if anybody out there in cyberspace was interested, yes. So the question is, my question to you is, I understand that you do readings. What is a reading, and what intuitive methods do you use to interpret the information from the astrology chart for people?
Well, since we're talking about a non-material tool, your own personal inspiration and intuitiveness will come in on both sides. One is for the interpreter to go and look at the chart and come up with a dialogue of assistance and service. And you, depending on your consciousness level, will be able to accept or deny or empathize or reject. I mean, you're going to have your own scientific community digest every word that he says. But the idea is that it is a catalyst for you to find out further about yourself. Now, there's so many ways out there. You can go to a psychologist, you can go to somebody with a hypnotherapist, a QHHT. I mean, how do you find out who you are? Boy, my goodness, there's so many out there. I'm just saying that the chart is one of many. So that's where the chart is. And the other one, the interpretation, is a reflective, recursive dialogue between the one who is able to interpret the chart or understand the symbols and put them into words, and you to move further with it. Now, I've been doing astrology charts, I don't know, for 50 years. And I've gotten into it recently pretty seriously. I'm looking more at how do you use the chart as an indicator of why you're here and what you can do while you're here, and how do you get out of it? How do you get out of this here? It's an escape room. Here is an escape room. Here is the key for you to get out of the here. It's beyond.
But taking the knowledge of your experiences with you.
Therefore, the word HomoGalactus, right? We're not earthbound beings. Everything we're going to interpretate is going to look from a galactic point of view. So in the last couple of years, I've gotten more intent into it, and because I come up with the distinction instead of it being a future thing, I'm trying to go and see how it can be your key to have a higher consciousness. See, so in that respect, the chart interpretation has a completely different meaning than what you see nowadays.
But I have observed you not only as a recipient of a chart reading or interpretation, but also with others. And it seems that you use, a higher level of intuition, and you do a reading. I mean, you tap into the person, call it a psychic reading, call it an intuitive reading. I think that you can look at all the numbers and symbols, and you form a picture in your mind, and you transmit or share that dialogue. And so I'm just kind of interested in, I don't know, having you maybe kind of expand on that piece a little bit and just share on the gift I think that you have in being able to do that for people.
Okay, well, thank you. I wasn't going to bring some of that in because, but hey, I'm being interviewed and I'm being 100% fluid with you there. I mean, level with you. The non evolutionary oriented, evolution is not the right, enlightened, the non-enlightened earthbound ordinary astrologer will interpret it one particular way. They have to use intuition to be able to make these, to use all the words, and there's tens of thousands of words for each of the houses, the signs, and in relationship. I mean, they give you a 30-page report, okay, if you wanted to, and you have to read through all of that. If you're looking for it as a key to get out of the room, you don't need that many words, because you're now talking about a non-material point of view. Is that suddenly it looked like I had something on my forehead. I'm being attacked by something. It's a background. So you, I guess I lost my track of thought there for a second. Would you repeat part of that question? No.
Okay. So the question is, okay, I've been a recipient and I've also observed you basically doing astrological readings, and you are spot on. I understand that you've done it kind of for immediate family members or people that you kind of know. So you already have kind of the vibe about the person, right? And then you're looking at this, crazy culmination of like lines and symbols. And I mean, I'll show our audience one in our next session. But then you take all that and you combine that not only with, your research and studying and knowledge that you've acquired, but a certain level of intuition. And that's really the point of what I'm trying to tap into. Do you feel like you go into a meditation mode? Do you feel like you're tapping into your higher self, your higher power? How are you providing that interpretation from an intuitive, a HomoGalactus kind of a perspective?
Okay, well, that's a good question. And I guess that part of me got confused there before, because maybe part of this is very personal. Because you could say, how did you develop your own intuitive and psychic skills? I don't want to put it in that kind of a level, but there is a process associated with that. And I think that I gave myself an inside card, because my mother was a card reader.
I was actually going to bring that up. Cool.
She was from Cuba, and I won't get into her thing, but she had a particular talent to go and empathize with people on certain levels, to be able to give them information that they were ready for, and that she had no way of knowing. And she was a manicurist at one point in time in her life, and she had a very nice Hispanic accent and could not get a lot of job, a lot of play. And if we're talking about 1938, 1939, there was an attraction, novelty, but a prejudiced point of view about women in general, but also about Hispanics. I mean, there weren't that many there at the time in New York City, so they were kind of a cute novelty, right? And then they, my God, we got so many Hispanics over here. We got 30% of the population is better learn a new language, so on. So my mother would be able to go and do a manicure and see a man's hand and read his palm and say stuff that would come to her mind somehow, whatever. I don't know her process. And the guy would go, whoa, I was just thinking about that. I had that thing and so on and so forth. And then she had a side hustle in a way, because she had that talent. And then she also had the skill of going and reading the tarot cards. She would go there, shuffle the cards up, you shuffle it, put the cards on. Phenomenal. And I've seen it. And I went to boarding Catholic school, so I only came home on Christmas, Easter, and essentially 1 month in the summer. So if you take the time when I was 5 years old till the time I graduated from high school in 16, I had in that time, if you clipped all of these little snippets together, 1 year with this woman.
Wow.
1 year. But
Wow.
I saw her do a lot of readings.
You do a really good accent for 1 year.
Hey, it's amazing. I cannot believe it. You think I live with Agubas for a long, long time. And I only learned it little by little by little. And, next thing you know, I can.
And I'm wearing her ring.
There you go. That's another reason why I speak with a Spanish accent in this particular one. So she had a gift. And I watched the gift, and she did readings for me too. And a lot of things that she said about me, especially in my early part of my life. I mean, I left when I was 18 and I'm 81 now. So, I did a lot of time when I did not do readings or listen to her accent. And so I gave myself a snippet. I gave myself a genetic DNA advancement than perhaps other people. But it's not something that I said, oh, my mother was a psychic and she could read your hand, she could tell you dreams, she could do all kinds of stuff. So therefore I must be able to do that too. That wasn't the way it came out through my mixer. All right. And if you take a look at my astrological chart, that is not one of my perceived personal talents. But I will say, although I don't do cards, I have done cards. I've looked at it, I've tried it. Looks like a bunch of numbers and clubs and spades and too complicated. But I have done looking at astrological charts that I could somehow piece all of that language together. Why? Because I'm a Virgo, so I know about words and how to make words together and piece them together, make the relationship to it, put them in an organized way, entertaining way, somewhat enlightenment, but more entertaining sometimes than enlightenment. And I look at a chart and I get a vibe. I look at it, bing, boom, bam, bing, boom, and I say something. I don't remember a word I said 2 minutes after I said it. And they go, oh, thank you very much. I didn't know that one about me. I've been asking that question. What about this? What about that? And I go, and then the session is over and they go, yeah, that was good. What did you think about that? I don't remember. I got to look at the chart again. So
you feel that you're using a higher self, intuition, and kind of in a way doing a psychic reading.
Okay, there is some psychic. I'm not going to go and say it's psychic, but I mean, there's an intuition. Now, something, okay, everybody that's out there is going, oh, you're talking about science. There's intuition that you can get from at least two different ways. One is from a DNA hands-on, which I think I have, and it's coming out interestingly and surprisingly enough in astrology. And the other one is that you can learn how to develop your intuition. There's all kinds of books about it. I don't think I have that one right here now. But I happened to come across an interesting book by somebody famous. I can't remember. She wrote 3 books on the thing, and she's fantastic. And her first book was Develop Your Intuition. It's good for you on the planet. You'll be able to understand things better. You'll be able to run your life better. You'll get feelings when you talk to people. You get a vibe from them. All of that, if you develop that kind of a thing. And it turns out to be a step for yourself to expand. how do you get out of, once you get it in that house of that mansion, how do you get out of your mansion, and how do you go and walk up and down the street without getting run over by a car? All right. You use intuition, you pay attention to the lights, and blah, 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 blah. And then the other one is, how do you perceive all of this together in a particular way? And the other one is, okay, now how do you go and use it on a galactic basis? And here you are as an entity in the universe. How do you use that as a thing? So this is a progression process.
Well, thanks so much for sharing. I do want to, that was very long, but thank you.
It's only supposed to be 22 words.
Okay,
I'm
so
a Virgo, I got words.
So I want to thank everyone, and I hope everyone gained some value from today's fun session and some entertainment and some level of enlightenment. I do want to just share my screen to one image just briefly that I think might kind of segue into our next session. So I'm going to try to do this here. Well, I may not be able to.
In that case, let me say goodbye.
Right. Well, you know what? I'll just, instead of using it as a summary for today's session, I'll use it as a lead-in for our next session, which we talked about readings and we laid the foundation for the topic of astrology. And the next session, which will be part 2, will be focused on the chart. So we might just get a little bit more mathematical on the combining of the information that puts the chart together. And you don't have to go too deep into it, but just kind of give our audience a basic understanding of the different aspects of a simple chart.
Well, in the old days, it was a big mathematical thing. It took you 2 hours to get everything accurate. Nowadays, you got computers, they put that all together, you get a chart printed out, and now you can start reading it.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
So that's how, I know you know. So I will use my chart because I'm still learning about myself, and
Okay.
I can show you how certain pieces of information have come to me now that I've seen 50 years ago when I did the stuff for Civil League, because I did my own chart then, and I looked at it and went, and it's taken me 50 years to be able to go and really, really understand the chart. And by the way, this whole video blog thing, the HomoGalactus, the whole interconnection, because I've looked at my chart and with respect to Denise's chart, and we all wrapped around and did stuff. But now suddenly we're in some kind of synchronicity, and this is the byproduct of our synchronicity. So if you,
and I'm sorry I was interrupting, and I said I know, but I meant that kind of as I want to focus on that topic a little bit more in part 2 as to how was it done in the early days versus how is it done now on the computers. And you kind of just said that. That's good. No, it's good. It's good. Next time, I'm not going to give you the questions in advance.
Probably better not to.
Otherwise, we'll just have a 2-hour session and we'll just cover everything, right? But
no, we got to do it.
We need a break. We need a break.
Half-hour segments, otherwise people they already left. Stay around for
they're already asleep.
They're already asleep. I'm trying to make it fun. I got more entertainment in here. You stay and forget about the content. You want to see what accent I come up with. Does he only know Spanish? Oh, dare say I do. Dare know other ones too. I worked with a lot of programmers from East India. They go, and how are you today? Sai Baba, Sai Wam. So I learned a little bit of that too, but that's another story.
Well, and in closing, I did want to say, though, just one last thing. My understanding is that astrology, the way we know it, which you referred to as Western astrology, actually was rooted in the Greek culture versus the Chinese that had their own. They had their own things, and they were based on years instead of months, days, and times.
Well, the Greeks never really officially did the astrology thing. That was kind of an Egyptian.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the Egyptian, because they were very much celestially oriented. Obviously, the pyramids are connected to the Orion and other things. I mean, without getting a complete treatise on that subject, the Greeks, of course, they knew about that energy, and each of the gods that they had a particular personality. Zeus, etc.
Right.
And the Romans, they were like total I mean, they were Saturn. The whole thing was Saturn for them. Everything was serious and purpose and blah, blah, blah. Of course, they knew how to bacchanal too, but the Romans really, part of the Western culture, used astrology. Now, Chinese is a different thing because there's also 12 related to the 12, not related, but in similitude of the astrological signs, but it's now based on Jupiter, because Jupiter stays in every sign about a year, and it moves from the first Lunar New Year, which we just had in beginning of February, to the next February. So it's a lunar oriented, Jupiter related kind of thing. So they have 12, and it only goes one in each year. See, which astrology is not that way. Astrology is a pattern, and a pattern is a map. It's a key to get out of your earthbound consciousness. It's a key out of your escape room for your earthbound consciousness. You have a physical body, but you are a spirit inside a physical body. And the astrology chart triggers that connection so that you feel more comfortable being in an intuitive spiritual basis as a spirit, multidimensional being, than being just a body. And Chinese has, I mean, we can't go, you didn't want me to go through all the Chinese signs. Was that enough? But
Sure. I mean, a little bit. I mean,
the Chinese astrology is Jupiter based, and there's 12 signs, and that's it. They have relationships between them because it goes through a cycle. So therefore, you could be a metal in the sign, or water. Metal, water, earth,
wood,
fire. In each one of
they
the
have
signs,
wood. They have wood.
and they have wood. Well, it's
That's Earth. That's like Earth.
Earth.
Oh,
Earth
okay.
is wood. Yeah, you're right. But I was using the astrological ones: earth, wind, and fire, and air. I mean, water. So they have that too, and they're in 20-year cycles. So, like, for example, interestingly enough, my grandson, my youngest personal not personal, but in part of my younger daughter's thing, was born in 2001. So I was explaining the particular year we happened to be snakes. I'm a snake, and so therefore he was too. And the guy's very bright; he picked it up right away. And I'm a metal snake, and so therefore he is too, because he's born 60 years after me. So we happen to be on the same thing. And then I'm into all of this stuff, and I was into it for a while. This was many years ago. And one day, and I had been using it or thinking it or whatever, but it wasn't just that very day, and then suddenly, so after about using it for about, or being aware of the knowledge base, that's what I mean about using, maybe about 4 or 5 months after, I woke up one morning, and my mother was a snake also, and she also was a Virgo. But she wasn't a metal snake. She was some other kind of, I think she was a hoochie coochie snake. Because she could dance and put a glass on her head, put water in it, or wine, preferably wine, because after, whatever. And she could dance. You think, oh my God, did it have glue on the bottom? How did she keep that in her head? I mean, she could move her neck around and the glass would stay right on her head. I don't know how the heck.
Wow. I wish I could have seen that.
I wish I could see it again. It was incredible. She was the life of the party. Okay, everybody, okay, we're going to have a good time here. And then she put a glass on the head and put on some Caribe music and go chi-chi-chi, pa-pa-pa-dee, pa-pa, and that thing was staying there. Everybody, oh boy, it's going to fall down any minute now.
Oh my God.
And so I got to understand her a little bit better, because I now interpreted her as a snake, Virgo, and then I saw what the sign that she was in, or the vibrational pattern that she was in, and compared that with the metal, and I could see how we were related and how we didn't relate it, and so on and so forth. It was very, very intuitive, and I tell you the truth, after all of that, I loved her more. I mean, because, you know, I didn't really know the woman that much. You know, I got out of high school and suddenly she goes, "Oh, now you can support me, man. I'm trying to go to college, lady. Give me a break. Your study room is in the bathroom with the board." So I got to empathize more with her at that point. And that's what this whole thing is about. If you know yourself better, you get to know somebody else gets to know themselves better, then your higher selves, they don't have the same earthly conflicts together. So you both become intuitive. You infuse their intuition and heighten it, and they infuse your intuition and you heighten it. And so you're getting high together. It can happen. You can get high together on so many levels, so many ways, and don't let anybody take that away from you.
That's awesome. Well, listen, we had an amazing session for number 2. I think that we definitely ran over 30 minutes, though.
No, we're not
You're like, I want
45.
2 30-minute sessions. I'm like, well, this is a
Well,
heavy, it's a heavy topic. And I love
okay.
how you expand on each question and give all the background. And now I know where, from a DNA perspective, I got it. But we're going to have fun going into more about astrological charts in part 2 of astrology and session 3 of HomoGalactus.
Well,
So
give
stay
some
tuned.
idea of some of the other things that we want to cover as time goes on. You
Well,
know,
we'll get there.
yeah,
We'll
we'll
get
give
there.
them a teaser right now. I mean, we want to
And
cover.
you give them a teaser. I don't have it on the top of my head right now. I mean,
Okay. Well, yeah. In other words, okay. So just as a teaser,
it's a
because
wrap up, right? I think it's been an hour and a half. So.
wrap up. Hey, don't think that we're pushing anything. We're
Okay,
not
what
pushing.
are some things you're going to talk about then? Since
Well,
that's what
one
you'd
of the
like.
things that Denise is interested in is out of body experiences. I mean, that's part of evolution of consciousness also. And so you can say, well, okay, you know, I'm a religious person. I don't believe in that kind of stuff. You don't have to believe in it. I'm not pushing it, but it's a subject that's out there. And there's a lot of books and a lot of people, a lot of whatever. And so, you know, if I go and I talk to you about Jesus Christ, which is the key, it's an important entity, and there's a mansion. I mean, that mansion is so big it's a house, okay? But there's also a thing that out-of-body experiences of remote viewing. I mean, that's a subject that there is interest in. We want to go and cover that. There's other subjects that has to do with exoplanets, exoplanetary things. There are people talking about extraterrestrials. We'll touch about that maybe, I don't know, way down the road, episode 20 or something like that. They're there. I don't want to get into it because maybe I'm not ready for it. I'm not ready. Not that if someone showed up right here now and he was whatever, that means I'm ready for it and then you're ready for it. But it's not a high level a dialogue. Well, I guess the people are talking about extraterrestrials now, and who knows, it might move up. Give us a feedback. Hey, we got a thing in the thing, and it looks for replies. And by the way, I put a statement in there of what HomoGalactus is about. It's an enlivening process, right? I'm not. I'm using the concept of Homo erectus, leading to Homo sapiens, indicating an earthbound consciousness. And I'm using the term HomoGalactus to go and get us out of that soup, that mud. I like to think it's a mud bath that we happen to be in that's keeping us trapped here, that we're microdosing peace. Come on, we're eternal beings. We should not be microdosing peace. We maybe should be microdosing terror. You know, there's a little here and a little there on a weekend. We're having a celebration and 10 people are going to kill themselves instead of every freaking day, somebody shooting, killing, blah, blah, blah. We want to get past that. That's the whole idea of HomoGalactus. Now, you could say, if you're a religious person, go to your religion. Christ is a key thing. He brought a pathway between the supreme being of all consciousness that is everywhere existence. He has a connection to that, intuitive and a spiritual basis. And he says, come follow me, listen to everything that I say. And therefore, you too can do the same thing. This is true. You could do that. But don't get, I mean, in my opinion, you can get so wrapped in that, you can't talk about OBE, NDE, extraterrestrial, exoplanet. You can't talk about astrology. You can't talk about, you know, any finance. I mean, it's everything is Jesus. Well, it is joyous eternal souls united synergistically. That's
Yes,
Jesus.
but we need to have a visual. Instead of just saying it, we need to have a visual.
Well, this is the second show. Wait, we're getting better. We got a disclaimer, right? We got a disclaimer. You're going to see that from now on. We're getting better. As we do this, we get to realize what we need.
So the last thing
Stay
I wanted
tuned.
to
There's a
say,
lot of fun stuff out there. Stay tuned.
well, the other fun thing that I might throw in there is just from a personal perspective is disconnecting from being earthbound also includes an awareness of what's happening on the planet from a food production standpoint, from going green, saving the planet, utilizing the resources on the planet for the 8 billion people in different ways, and maybe clearing and attuning ourselves more in alignment with our higher selves by going plant-based. So that is one thing that
Absolutely.
I've done from a personal life choice. I wouldn't push it on anyone else. I don't judge anybody else. You do you. But I've had some amazing health benefits, and at some point in the future, I want to share some of those successes.
And then I'll interview you.
There you go.
There you go. Then you can go and elucidate on it because you got the vocabulary for that. And I totally am in total synchronicity with it. We went through an experience of life. I won't go through the whole thing, but I don't eat mammal. I may have some chicken and I may have some fish. Predominantly, I'm a plant-based oriented diet, Mediterranean or orientation.
Okay, so I just wanted to
add
to what you were saying about possible future topics to stay in tune for.
Yes,
all right, everybody.
Come back. We got surprises for you. Thank you. It was fun.
Side on.
Side on. And Jesus Christ, too. Don't forget him. JC's the key. I mean, let's face it. If Christ did show an easy way to go. You follow him, you got it. And if you got any other vocabulary that you want to have explanation to, elevate that, put that on that bus, the bus to God.